SMQB's episode 149. Welcome, listeners. We're recording this on January 29th. We're down Bison, so I am going to moderate tonight. You should know that SMQBs can be found on YouTube, Apple Pod, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have any comments or want to ask questions, send them to SMQB's mailbag at gmail.com. That's SMQBS mailbag at gmail.com. Let's start out with Bison's favorite new question, fellas. I'll start with you, Milk, since you're late and not prepared. Who this week in the sports world would you like to have a drink with, and what would you ask that person?
Milk's having another drink.
Another drink. I've had a lot of drinks over the last 72 hours. I think someone on this pod will say Dan Campbell, so I'm not going to go there. You know who I've been really impressed with over the last 8 or 9 days? And House, you'll like this. Jason Kelce. I have really enjoyed him in the background of all these games, housing beers. I'm all in. He seems like he's fun as hell. Get me in a bar with that guy of course he would drink me under the table, and he probably doesn't want to drink White Claws, but he sounds like fun. I'm all in.
He'd have fun with you.
All right, Pope, what about you?
Well, you are correct, Milk. Somebody on the pod was going to have drinks with Dan Campbell, a former Cowboy, inspirational player when he was tight end before passing the torch to Jason Witten here in Dallas. I just love to pick his brain. And I mean, what point did he short itself out that being aggressive is the only answer? We'll talk about it, I'm sure, ad nauseum here in a minute. But, he said this could have been our only chance. And I think that's a fairly insightful comment. I would love to talk to him about what he thinks his chances are of making it back as close as they were, which is as close as you can get.
Good one. How about you, House?
Well, this is likely to bring in tens of millions of listeners. So I'm going to have a drink with Taylor Swift at the bar. I'm going to bring a duffel bag with me. I'm going to give her a shot that will make her pass out. I'm going to stick her in the duffel bag so that no one has to watch her at all during the Super Bowl. Hey, listen, I think she's great. I love her music. She's awesome. But that's
you gonna dismember her? I mean, how are you getting her in a duffel bag?
She's just going to have a nice hibernation for the next couple weeks.
Are you okay, House?
I'm fine.
Jesus.
Isn't that like a serial killer from the 1970s?
She'll be fine.
The three of us disavow that statement and do not stand behind it for 1 second.
I agree with the premise. I'd like to see a lot less of her, though.
Why is that? I mean, why do you guys not complain when Tom Brady goes and sits in the owner's box and they cut to him every 5 seconds, or Peyton Manning, or you name it? What's so annoying about cutting to Taylor Swift? What's the problem?
You know who thinks it's annoying? Taylor Swift thinks it's annoying. She literally said that. She literally said to the TV screen last night, "Go away." She doesn't want the camera on her. I understand that lots of new fans are tuning in to watch because they can see their beloved angel Taylor Swift, and she's wonderful, fantastic talent, great, social, public policy, everything. But come on, man. Like, I turn on the football game to watch a football game. You want to flash to see her once or twice during the game? Go for it. Every catch that Travis has, and who gives a shit? By the way, well, I won't even go there. I just think that there's also like a little bit of a white component to it. I'll just say that too.
Whoa.
I do.
Wow.
All right. Well, I'm going to have a drink with the friend of our show and my buddy, Jerry Bembry.
Oh.
And we are going to revel in the fact that since the OG Anunoby trade with the Knicks and the Raptors. The Knicks are 11-2. I never would have seen this coming. I was scared to death about losing quickly. I love that guy. I mean, RJ Barrett was the third pick in the draft a few years ago. This is just amazing. It's turned out to be the best trade in years for the Knicks, and I just would love to know why this is working. Maybe Spike Lee would join us and we'd have a good old time.
That would be great.
What is working so well with this trade? I just would love to understand it better because it is working.
His long arms and defense, which you desperately needed.
I think he plays D and doesn't demand the ball, which is good on a team with Jalen Brunson and Randall.
Didn't the
by
Knicks
the way,
have
it's going to be
similar
back
run last
in
year?
a couple of weeks instead of months. Now he dislocated his shoulder in the game this week or last week.
Didn't the Knicks have a similar run last year?
Yeah, but
Getting them into the playoff picture.
They were like the 9th seed last year. They're going to be like the 4th seed this year.
You guys ever dislocated your shoulder?
I have separated my shoulder.
Negative.
Never dislocated it.
I've never dislocated it, but did you see that play yesterday with Greenlaw? The Niners that made that like vicious I think it was a sack, but whatever, it was a vicious
hit over the middle.
Hit over the middle, right? Hit over the middle, clearly dislocated his shoulder. And like when it was basically out of the socket, and my family kept saying, "Can they please turn off like this segment? They can go to something else because I don't want to see it get popped in back in on the sideline."
Yeah,
and he was fine. They popped it back in. He went on to play. It was
Oh, that sounds just awful. Oh, thank you.
Let's switch over to the divisional playoffs. I think, Pope, it was you who said by text that the KC Baltimore game was going to be the game of the day, and it really turned out to be a stinker. And the game was decided 17-10, and neither team looked great on offense. Kansas City sure came out strong early and then fizzled, but the whole time, Mahomes still had the "don't worry, we got this" attitude that he always has, even though they only scored 17 points. Lamar looked lost the whole game. He just didn't seem up to the task. And then, culminating with that horrible interception where he just flings it into triple coverage for an interception. And so, the question House asked earlier today is, is Lamar really worth this contract? He had home field advantage through the divisional playoffs and couldn't get them across the line to the Super Bowl, and just he sure didn't look yesterday like he was up to the task. He certainly does not look like he's in Mahomes' league. What do you guys think?
I mean, very similar to some other quarterbacks. At least he won one game, but not performing when it counts in the playoffs. But do you throw away the whole year and say, "Oh well, we're going to go find somebody else"? I mean, that's the problem. I mean,
the guy's going to win the MVP.
Yeah. Well, and the other guy, Dak, is going to be second or third. I mean, he's a finalist with 3. So, what do you do with the quarterbacks who have great years and maybe they win one playoff game, but they can't get their teams over the hump? I don't know. There's only 2 teams that make the Super Bowl every year, so I think Baltimore is stuck with Lamar for the foreseeable future. I don't think they're going to go try to find somebody else. It's just going to take. Just like I keep saying with Dak, it's going to take 1 or 2 games to change the narrative, and Lamar's not there yet. I don't know if he'll get there, but he's not there yet.
I don't think he's going to get there. And the interesting thing is, over time, I mean, just age will reduce
27.
his. Yeah, he's young, but age will reduce his speed. He will not be the same running back that he is right now. I saw this crazy stat that in the entire game yesterday, the Ravens ran 3 early down running back runs or on first or second down. 3 against the NFL's number 28 defense.
Run
So
defense.
run defense. So, I mean, for sure that was, Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, coaching malpractice there. But I was shocked that they did not, against the number 28 run defense, I was shocked that they did not get Lamar more involved in running plays. Shocked by that. But once a team does take away the run, let's just say that one of the reasons they didn't run as many is because KC was taking it away. You got to be able to pass the ball. And the guy he's not a reliable passer. He does, some of his throws are great, but a lot of them are garbage. He makes bad decisions. Of course, the triple coverage one we all know about. And so there was a reason why
he kept overthrowing his receivers.
Right. He overthrew every time
3
he
or
tried
4
to bomb
open
down the
guys.
sideline, it was overthrown by 5 to 10 yards. Most of the times when they tried to run a little flare pass out of the backfield, he doesn't have the touch for those passes. He can throw a nice dart over the middle or a down and out to the sideline, but he doesn't have the touch passes down or the touch long passes down. And I don't know. I think you're right, House. Maybe the answer is there's only 3 or 4 quarterbacks who can be mentioned in the same breath with Mahomes. Lamar's not one of them, and therefore the coaching staff needs to take into account that and look at KC's defense. How do you not run against KC? It doesn't make sense.
But I think the Chiefs' game plan was let's shut down the run, which obviously they did that. And then they make Lamar beat us. And that was a scary thing I saw. I saw a lot. How many times yesterday did you see 7-step drop back, indecision, which is scary, tuck and run, and then maybe fake throw, tuck again and run? And it's the indecision that when I think about his future, I'm like, this has got to be clicking at this point, right? I mean, we're going on how many years? 5 years? 6 years? It seemed like, I don't know. I saw somebody there's no way on all of those times he was dropping back and running that people were covered. He's not throwing it quick enough. And he seems to struggle with that decision-making, which I don't know.
You say that the KC was determined to stop the run. Well, the Lions were determined to stop the run too, and San Francisco stuck with it. There were plenty of times early in that game where CMC ran the ball for 2 or 3 yards. But eventually,
do they have the best running backs?
Eventually he's going to break one, and he did. He started to really hit it.
Well, look, I mean, maybe Lamar is a victim of bad timing in the NFL. He starts his career at the end of Brady's run and then continues his career into the next guy who I think will break Brady's records. And so maybe it's just, you might as well stick with Lamar. And unfortunately, maybe one of these years he beats Mahomes, but otherwise it's tough going. Nobody else is going to beat Mahomes either. So maybe it's that, or maybe there is a quarterback, maybe, like Burrow did, like maybe Herbert will develop under Harbaugh. I don't know, but I don't trust in Lamar's arm as a passer. And there is a reason that guys who study a lot of tape, a lot more tape than we do, and looked at Lamar up and down, team after team after team, passed on doing a big contract with him. If they thought he could get it done, they would have. So now Baltimore's got to figure out for the future, how do we use Lamar in such a way that we have a shot once we get to Mahomes? Because, by the way, that young defense is fantastic. I mean, they did hold them to 17 points for almost the entire game.
What happened to KC in the second half? Their play calling was way too conservative. I mean, they lost all their momentum. They were predictable.
They were so beatable yesterday.
They were playing not to lose in the second half. It worked, but if you told me they would score no points in the second half and still win, I'm not sure I would have taken that bet.
But it wasn't that I think I saw a stat where that was either the first time or the first time in like 30 years where a team has kept a opposing team to 17 points and lost in like a championship game. I mean, 17 points and you lose. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Both
And it
teams.
Going in, you would say if your defense is going to keep the Chiefs to
17,
you feel
yes.
good about winning that game.
I would have put a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
The Lions
Yeah.
scored more points against the Niners defense than the Chiefs and the Ravens combined. I mean, that's, who would have guessed that?
The last year the teams held serve at home in the championship games, but in recent years, home field has not meant as much, and it certainly didn't yesterday. I just feel like the Ravens really underperformed at home, and frankly, the Niners should have been beat at home, and both of those I found shocking.
Well, look, last week, I'm pretty sure I said that I owed Dan Campbell a bit of an apology because he certainly has rallied that team away from being a bunch of losers to winners. But I said he's still not, still doesn't have the chops to be the lead strategist on that team and should be handing over to the offensive coordinator the in-game decisions like when to go for it on fourth down and when to kick a field goal.
But that's the head coach's decision.
Yeah, I know, but it can't be his. He's not ready for that yet, is my point. And because he's Dan Campbell and because they lost by 3 points, you know that the decisions about kicking field goals are going to be scrutinized. Pope, he passed on 2 field goals, right?
Yes.
2 makeable field goals, less than 50 yards. If you can't make a 50-yard field goal in good weather, what are you doing in the NFL these days?
He passed on the 45-yard field goal with 8 minutes left in the third quarter that would have basically equalized what San Francisco had done with their first drive, and it still would have been a 3-score game. That was inexcusable. Just the risk reward for that was just not worth it.
Did you know that the analytics say to go for it? I didn't know that. Why? How is that?
On 4th and 2.5, deep in your own.
They had a better chance of winning going for it. It's slight.
They were on the San Francisco 28.
And to kick the field goal.
Well, that's the problem with analytics. They don't take into consideration the game,
the momentum,
the environment, and the momentum.
Exactly.
That's
a petri dish.
The Lions had early momentum, and one sure way to lose it is to go for it on 4th and not make it. And they did it twice.
Totally agree.
They did it twice.
When you are playing, I understand their defense wasn't playing great, but every time you get a chance to score points against the San Fran defense and you're at San Fran, you do it. You do it. It's not an easy decision. And sometimes that's just about, it's not even about giving the players confidence. That's just about, I'm going to show that I'm ballsy, that I've got that I can do this. It's not giving your players the chance to win.
Well, how about the decision at the end of the game? They drive down to the goal line practically, and they've got to preserve 3 timeouts in order to have any chance of scoring after they score this hopefully touchdown. And the announcers are like, what you can't do right here is run the ball. So what do? They run the ball, they lose time, they lose yards, then they burn up one of their timeouts. Now they only have 2 timeouts, and there's no way they can keep the Chiefs from running out the clock.
Was a 4% chance on onside kick.
That is just a dumb,
idiotic. So I don't know that Dan Campbell's the guy. It's funny. It was one of the last things that we talked about last week, which was how do we rank the coaches? And I think the one thing that we were unanimous on was that Campbell was 4th. I don't think anybody had him above Shanahan or Reed or Harbaugh. And in the end, Campbell proved to be 4th.
Yeah, and I think Harbaugh proved to be 3rd.
He did not coach. He did not coach that game well either.
He couldn't control his players.
The only thing I would say,
penalties in the second half.
The only thing I would say in Campbell's defense is his players didn't do him any favors. Josh Reynolds dropped 2 balls. Jameson, what's his name? Jameson Williams dropped a touchdown pass. And then Jahmyr Gibbs fumbled the ball after one of these terrible fourth down decisions. So that's two series in a row where they coughed the ball back up to the Chiefs. You just can't do that and win championships.
But the problem is Dan Campbell's coaching put them in the position that if they made those mistakes, that they could lose the game. If he manages the game in the way that he should have, they never should have had that issue.
Yeah. Well, it's a combination of things.
I mean, just think if they had kicked that field goal. So I looked up the percentages on second down from the San Francisco 36 on that drive with 8 minutes, 24 seconds left in the third quarter. They were 91.5% chance to win, according to ESPN. So you kick the field goal, you're back up by 17, and, you know, San Francisco has the ball with like 7.5 minutes left in the third quarter, and they haven't moved the needle at all. Totally different fucking game. Totally different game.
Let's talk about that picture behind house there. If having said all of this about how horrible some of the skill players for the Lions played and how bad their coaching staff was, nonetheless, they would have won that game but for this fluke play behind house where Purdy throws a desperation 50-something yard bomb. He overthrows Ayuk. The safety for the Lions is in a perfect position to intercept the pass. It comes right into his shoulder face area, goes through his hands and bounces off his face up in the air, and Ayuk catches the ball. San Francisco goes on to score. If that hadn't happened, Niners lose that game. What does that tell you about Purdy and his play?
That he stinks. That he stinks. So let me just say it. He stinks.
Come on.
Come on now.
Stink.
Bring it.
Listen to me. Listen to me. He is a great player of the screen pass. He has some speed and can be a little elusive. But if you need a guy, just like Lamar, you got to go in the pocket and you got to make key throws. He's not up to it. And he made some terrible passes yesterday. He overthrew guys. He threw a pick. And that play should have been a pick. That play will be right there with the immaculate reception and with David Tyree. I'm telling you, that play is so improbable that it could lead to a 49ers Super Bowl victory.
There are three places if the ball hits you, you have to catch it. One, of course, is in the hands. One is in the chest and the other's in the face. You've got to catch those balls. That's why this guy's not a receiver, I guess. Jesus, it hit him right in the face.
Timing was a little, I mean, if you look at the
like
replay,
that are 50-50 at
he
best.
tracked the whole thing coming in.
No, I think he tracked it at the very last second. He was delayed.
Are you?
He got turned around.
Milk,
yeah,
you've got it up.
You've
got it up behind you. Do you have? Are you going to defend Brock Purdy as this great the next coming of Tom Brady?
I don't think he is. What is our standard now? The flashy drop back. If you're not throwing 4 touchdowns, you suck. I agree with you. I don't think he's like this next. I don't put him in Patrick Mahomes category or anything like that. But I saw some good. He had some good throws yesterday. I think it's hard to deny that there were multiple throws.
You think he's better than Dak?
I think as a passer yesterday, I would have trusted him more as a passer than Lamar Jackson.
As a situational player, yes.
And he rushed for just as many yards as Lamar.
Right.
Like 6 off. I thought those runs were huge. Those runs that he had were huge.
Do you love him as much as Bison loves Taylor Swift?
Oh God! I mean, does anyone love anything more than Bison loves Taylor Swift?
Yeah, nobody comes from him and his Tay-Tay.
Yeah, I mean,
Rooster, where are you on Brock Purdy?
Well, first of all, I don't think you can win the Super Bowl by taking the first half off, which is what he seems to do. He comes alive in the second half. What is he waiting for? I don't get it. What is he waiting for? I do think that he showed me a lot with some of his decisions to tuck the ball down and run. He did a great job with that. But again, it was all in the second half. I think he's I think he's like a B level quarterback in the
Okay.
NFL.
They scored 30. How many points did they score?
34.
34 points. And we're like dogging them?
They
I don't know.
outscored them 27-7 in the second half.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, but they
Seven
got
of
the
those points
they got
were
the
off of a
benefit of
helmet.
that play, that fluke play.
Okay, that's
Okay,
one.
that's 21.
And then followed by the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble.
Okay,
mean-
that's 14. 2 field goals is 20. So he got you 1 touchdown the second half. Whoop-de-doo. By the way, the guy who caught both those I think it was both the touchdowns. What I am very impressed by, I doubted him when he came out of the draft. I wasn't as high as others were on him, but Brandon Ayuk is he is the man. He is a great wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like
They'll only get better.
I think he's more important to their team than Debo now.
Yeah.
He's not as important as CMC, but Ayuk is the man. I mean, Ayuk is making them forget about the need for Kittle.
Yeah.
Kittle was absent yesterday.
Yeah. He's powered by ladybugs.
Who, Ayuk?
Yeah. Did you hear his interview after the game?
No.
Yes.
No.
He was asked how did he feel after making such a lucky play? He said, I knew I was going to make a lucky play. There was a ladybug on my shoe before the game.
I love superstitious people.
Yep. Yep. All right. Anyone? Well, what do you guys think about the Super Bowl? Who do you got?
I think San Fran's going to do. Listen, I think I made the mistake. By the way, Bison really had it right. If the Lions didn't shit the bed, Bison had it right about the Chiefs and the Lions. And I don't think that you can really say the Chiefs come down from their perch until someone knocks them off. But I do think the Niners are going to do it because of that 28 in the league run defense. And I think if they're smart, they're going to run CMC down their throat all game long. The guy is an animal. He is a total animal.
Looked like he got hurt at the end of that game, though. He landed on his head.
Yeah, his neck. They'll massage that out. Tay will come in, but
he's got his own supermodel.
He's got his own supermodel.
Yeah, right.
I think the Niners run game plus they will tighten up what happened on D yesterday. I think the Niners are going to pull this off, and I'm going to be. We're going to have to say. Yeah, we're going to have to say Brock Purdy's the greatest.
Well, and also the KC's best pass rusher, Menahu, tore his ACL.
Yeah, that was bad.
That's big because he was one of the strip sack Lamar yesterday.
Yep. So that's big. That's real big. I think I'm with you. I think the Niners have what it takes to do what Buffalo couldn't do because they have the running game and they have a better defense.
I made the mistake of doubting Mahomes yesterday and picking the Ravens. I won't make the same mistake twice.
That's fair. That's probably a smart decision.
I'm with you, Milk. I'm totally with you. You don't underestimate Mahomes at your peril. So
that's fair. Where's the line?
1.5. 1.5. San Francisco, I believe.
Ask Nace the Greek.
So apparently when the Niners play a team in the NFC Championship that has a shade of blue in their uniform, they go on to win the Super Bowl. But when they play a team with not with a shade of blue, they lose in the Super Bowl. So because the Lions had a shade of blue in their uniform, they will. These are for all our Taylor Swift fans checking in. They will win the Super Bowl.
Real scientific, House.
Oh,
just saying.
Interesting. All right, let's. It's a little early to be talking too in depth about the NBA, but let's throw out some thoughts about what we're seeing so far. House, you had something you wanted to talk about.
Well, right now, I just got word. You guys have probably seen it that the NBA is formally investigating the Sixers and Joel Embiid because in a nationally televised game where it was the rematch of the Embiid-Jokic one, which a couple weeks ago I was at, which was so entertaining, the Sixers training staff said that they didn't like what they saw because he's been dealing with some knee instability, some knee tenderness, and they pulled him. And that happened about 15 minutes before the game, and apparently there's something in the collective bargaining agreement or whatever the league rules are that there's a protocol for how close to a game you can do that. And Embiid apparently has not played in Denver, I think, since 2019. And so there's lots of calls, and they were, howling at him that he was dodging them and all that stuff. But the question that came to me from all of this is lots of these star players, whether it's LeBron or KD or you name it, they're out of games mysteriously. They say it's related to some kind of tenderness or soreness or whatever, and they don't play. And yeah, the fans get shorted, but my question is, should these teams and players have the basically unfettered right to say, hey, yeah, he's just not going to play tonight. I want to do what is best to conserve the health for a star player so that we're ready when come playoff time. Does anybody have a problem with them doing that?
I don't. 82 games, a lot of wear and tear. Player load management is really important. I mean, it just happens to be it was a Denver game. I don't know.
My only difference is the NBA is a product that every one of these people is part of, and it's a business. And if you're going to do load management, take some games off against the Pistons and the Wizards. But when it's, the Sixers against the Nuggets, he probably ought to be playing in that game.
I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna lose this, and I think they are gonna be fined. And I think it's. By the way, because of this load management thing, there's a new rule in the NBA that to even be eligible for MVP, you have to play 65 games.
Right.
And Embiid has only got 7 left that he can sit out of. After that, if he does 8, the most games he can play is 64. But he said he doesn't care about it. He's much more interested in having the energy and the stamina for the playoffs than winning an MVP award, which he is the front runner for right now.
Well, speaking of Embiid, I think this year is the year that maybe even despite what the NBA ultimately wants, we're seeing a resurgence of high-scoring centers. The center play has become a focal point of the offense on many teams this year. You got Embiid dropped 70 the other night. Karl Anthony Towns was up over 60, right? What did he get that night in a losing effort?
I think 62 or 63.
62 or 3. You got the Joker, who is clearly the focal point of that offense, not only from a scoring standpoint, but also an assists standpoint. I just think, and now we got Wemby and others.
And Chet.
I think the center position is in the midst of a huge resurgence this year in the NBA, and it'll be interesting to follow.
Well, that was my observation was Chet. Do you recall that I think the majority of us said he was going to be a bust?
I didn't say that, but
we did think foot injuries would sideline him for a
while.
while.
Yeah, and it has Zion, but evidently Chet has overcome that. And to tail on that, I was going to say that it's got to be the surprise team of the year is the Thunder, number 1 in the West. I don't think anybody saw that coming. And Gilgeous-Alexander is an MVP candidate.
Sure. I mean,
the Thunder have something going that, again, if you look at the standings in the West, I mean, you got the Thunder and the T-Wolves tied for first. I don't anybody saw that.
Nope.
Well, I think those you did, Milk. I think those 2 players, Anthony Edwards and SGA, along with Tyrese Halliburton, I mean, they're truly, and we'll see what happens with Chet and Wemby, but they're the future. They're the future. And of course Luka, but SGA and Halliburton and Anthony Edwards are going to be routinely in the MVP conversation in the future. It's great. I mean, it is great. As Milk's a little bit younger, but when we were all like going through the Jordan years, it was like, I mean, is the NBA ever going to have anything like this again? And then we saw LeBron, and then it was like after LeBron was getting towards the end, I think the NBA is in really good shape. Their star players are really fun to watch. And it's not even a situation of parity. It's not like there's parity in the NBA. There's just great play on many, many teams.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we think that, but the ratings are down significantly
That's
in the
true.
NBA.
That's true.
So there's something about the product or culturally or something that's going on that is impacting the NBA right now. What do you think, Milt?
Is it down in the cities that they play in? I mean, I'm sure Boston. I mean, no one's missing a Celtics game in Boston.
No, I'm talking about like just the overall product, like the TNT, the ESPN games. Their ratings are down.
That's interesting. That's a good question. I don't know.
Season.
Yeah, right.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, before we get on to the punchable face, I'd just like to say rest in peace, Jimmy Williams, former baseball manager for the Blue Jays, Astros, and the Red Sox, died today. So let's pour one out for Jimmy Williams.
Yeah.
It
sucks.
All right. Who's got a punchable face? Anyone else?
You do.
I do. My punchable face has been brewing since we drafted this guy, Kadarius Toney. I was so happy when the Giants traded him, and then I thought I was going to have to eat crow when he scored twice in the Super Bowl the next year. But, you know, sure enough, he's back to his old antics, hurt all the time. He hasn't played since week 15. He had a hip injury, he had an ankle injury, he and his partner had a baby, so he hasn't played. And then he didn't play in the Bills playoff game because of the hip and ankle injury. And I mean, the corks hadn't stopped popping for Kansas City after they beat the Ravens. When he's on Instagram Live accusing the team of lying about his injuries and trying to basically move him on or whatever. I mean, the guy's just so immature. He's never, ever going to make it in the NFL. He just isn't. He's got a lot of talent, but he's needs to grow up, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. Somebody needs to punch him in the face just to wake him up.
I'm happy to do it. You screwed me over in last year's Super Bowl, so why not?
Yep.
Is he going to play
disappointment
in 2 weeks?
I don't think so.
Has that already been decided?
I think he's pretty much off the team. After that, those stupid comments. Andy Reid had to come out and say, "We're not making this up. We're not lying. He's hurt."
He's a huge disappointment. I had high hopes for him.
Yeah. Talk about bad team management. Dave Gettleman. I'm so glad I don't ever have to talk about that guy again. Anyway, who's got a lasso?
I've got a lasso. I've got what I think is a real world lasso. It's not quite the Greyhounds of the Ted Lasso show, but it's pretty close. In the English football and soccer that's played over there, they have a tournament called the FA Cup, which is wildly popular because it gives every team at any level of professional English football essentially a chance to play. So you've got what we all know about the Premier League, which is the first division, and then some people have heard of the second division, the Championship League, English Championship League, but then after that, nobody knows anything really below that. And there are multiple tiers. There are 10 total tiers. And, you know, like, I'm not saying it's quite beer league when you get down to number 10, but the talent's a big drop off. Well, as you go through these rounds, most of those teams in those bottom tiers are just getting totally washed out. Every once in a while, there's an upset where maybe a 6th tier beats a 5th tier, whatever. Well, this past weekend, Maidstone United, Maidstone's a town about 30 miles east of London. Maidstone United, which is a 6th tier team, pretty low down there, was facing one of the very top teams in the 2nd tier, Ipswich Town, who's probably going to be promoted to Premier League next year. I think they're in 2nd. And in a crazy upset. This is now the 4th round. This is not like the first round. They've gotten pretty deep into this. They beat them, and they gave the town, the fans, young and old, like the memory for a lifetime. This is the largest upset since 1978 in terms of one division versus another. And what I was saying to you guys over the text, this is like, Pope was saying, like, is this like Chaminade beating Virginia? And I'm like, this is like an NAIA team. This is like Houston Baptist beating Duke or something like that. I mean, this is maybe not Duke because they're not that good, Ipswich Town, but this was wild. And if you want to just see really fun Lasso moments, you watch some of the celebration of the players in the locker room after the game, singing songs and, just having fun. And you're just, for the most part, they're regular Joes. It was awesome. It's a really fun, true Lasso moment.
That's cool. That is awesome.
Anybody else have a lasso? Let's move on to buzzer beaters. Who's got one? Anybody?
Of interest today, I noted where Tyrell Hatton took his live bid and bid adieu to the PGA and European World Tours.
Oh,
Well,
That's a big get for them.
Wow.
I'm going to do a buzzer beater that I'm shocked that Pope is not doing, but I guess he has seeded this professional. I'm the guy now to cover tennis, but I
texted that. Go ahead.
I did not even realize this is how little I know about tennis. I just keep hearing about this guy, Yannick Sinner, that won the Australian Open, that beat Djokovic. And I'm hearing about this guy. And then once I heard the stuff about him, I didn't appreciate that he is actually Italian. So now he is like the most wildly popular athlete. And, normally the name of the game is soccer in Italy, sometimes some other stuff, but there's now an Italian tennis player, Yannick Sinner, who's taken over the country by storm and he's now led his team to winning the Davis Cup. He's beat Djokovic twice in the last few months. He beat him in this tournament and now won a Grand Slam by winning the Australian Open. So here's to the Italian tennis player, Yannick Sinner.
Good one. Milk, you got anything? Who do you guys think is going to be drafted by the Bears? What are they going to do with their first pick? They're going to take Caleb or stick with Fields?
Stick with Fields.
I think they're going to stick with Fields, and I think it's a mistake.
I don't know about that.
They're
You think so?
going to trade down and get Marvin Harrison.
I mean, Commanders are too, right?
Yeah, I think the Commanders are going to wind up with Jaden Daniels at 2.
Jaden Daniels?
Why? Why wouldn't they take the other
His
of
stock
Marvin
hadn't gone up that
Harrison
much.
or Caleb Williams? Why wouldn't they take the
No.
other?
If Caleb Williams goes number 1,
Which he will.
the Commanders, I think, take Jaden Daniels 2. Obviously, they take Williams if he's still there.
Who's
Yeah.
going to trade up to 1 to get Caleb then from Chicago?
If
Patriots.
But if you're Chicago and you're keeping Fields, why are you not trading that pick?
You are.
Yeah, I think you
Okay.
are.
You're trading down.
Right.
And then you get Harrison. And
Right,
maybe
right.
you package and get like 2 picks in the first 12 or 13 picks.
Yeah.
If I'm Washington, I just make sure I get it and I make the move. Whatever I gotta, it's not going to be that much to move up one spot. But if I'm Washington, I don't let someone leapfrog me. I get Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Well,
Same
then
with-
if I'm Chicago, let's say they do that. Then I'm Chicago. I mean, this is getting better by the draft, because then I take the number 2 and I trade that pick too, because I don't need the number 2 to get Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, they could stockpile.
Just stockpile.
Yeah. Just keep going down.
And what would Washington have to give up to get their number 1? The number 2 for sure.
You think about
Who's
that.
3?
If they wind up doing what Pope just suggested, and they could draft Marvin Harrison and one of the top offensive tackles. Keep Fields. I mean, they're in good shape there.
The Bears were close this year. I mean, they were within one
Improved.
game of making the playoffs.
They improved.
Who's drafting third?
Is it the Patriots?
The Patriots. It goes Bears, Commanders, Patriots, Cardinals, Chargers, Giants.
Well, the Patriots are going to get a quarterback, right?
They
They're
have
done
to.
with
Have to.
defense. So, yeah, I mean, Chicago this is a huge opportunity for them.
Right. That's why if they like Fields, they keep Fields and they stockpile.
I know, but I don't know, man.
So now you've got, the Patriots and the Commanders in good shape to get one of the top two quarterbacks.
Right.
Last buzzer beater question for you guys. What will the job of Bill Belichick be next year during football season?
Fox analyst.
High school football coach.
He's out of a job, right? He doesn't have an
AFC
opportunity.
AFC Richmond.
He's going to sit out a year and then go back.
Well, he's gonna wait for McCarthy to crater or somebody else, for one of the highlight jobs to open up.
Crazy.
I wouldn't want him.
Yeah, I guess.
All right, guys. We'll come back soon, Bison. We missed you. And I guess next week's 150, right, guys?
Yes.
Next week? Well, we'll see.
On the bubbly.
We'll get half of my next tattoo. See you guys.
See ya.
Hi, guys.
All right. See ya.